I never imagined I'd turn my pool into a cherry-flavored trap. But when an entitled woman with frosted tips and designer sunglasses kept trespassing into my yard like she owned the place, I stopped playing nice. She didn't just swim in it. She brought her kids, held wine nights, told people she was being generous by letting me use it too. So yeah, I filled it with Jell-O. She was already waist deep when it started to thicken. By the time she realized something was wrong, it was too late. Her legs wouldn't move. Her tote bag fell in. Her sunglasses vanished in the goo. She screamed. I sipped my tea. Neighbors watched. And the best part? I caught every second on camera. This wasn't a prank. This was the result of months of boundary pushing, gaslighting, and straight-up delusion. I warned her. I locked the gate. I even gave her a chance to quit while she was ahead. But she didn't just ignore me. She flipped the script, told the whole neighborhood she owned the pool, said I was unstable. And for a while, people believed her. Until the truth came out. And I made sure her final dip would be one she'd never forget.
Sticky.
Humiliating.
Public.
She thought she was above consequences. But all it took was one absurd idea and a few hundred packets of gelatin to bring her back down to earth. Literally. Before all this started, my life was quiet. Predictable in a good way. I live in a suburban cul-de-sac where the biggest drama used to be someone forgetting to bring in their trash bin. I'm a freelance graphic designer, which basically means I stare at screens, drink too much coffee, and avoid people most of the time. And that's exactly how I liked it. The house I bought sits on the corner lot, a little further back than the others. It's got a decent yard, enough space for my dog to run, and best of all, a pool. Not a fancy luxury setup, but clean, private, and completely mine. I saved up for years to afford that pool. It was my peace zone. After long workdays or hot weekends, I'd float with a drink, headphones in, not a care in the world. That pool was my version of a vacation. I even had a tall wooden fence installed, so I could enjoy it without feeling like I was on display. The neighborhood was friendly enough. Not exactly block party vibes, but people waved when they walked their dogs and nodded at the mailbox. There was an unspoken agreement to mind our business, but help each other if needed. That all changed the day Karen moved in next door. Of course, I didn't know her name at first, but I knew the haircut. Short in the back, longer in the front, blonde highlights so thick they looked painted on. She wore designer sunglasses indoors and always had her phone gripped like a weapon. Her voice? That nasal, know-it-all tone that somehow always sounds like an insult, even when she's saying good morning. At first, I tried to be neighborly, dropped off a welcome basket, introduced myself, even offered to give her the number of the lawn guy I use. She smiled, barely, said she was used to more upscale communities, but hoped this street had potential. Alrighty then. Didn't think much of it. Everyone's entitled to a first impression. But it didn't take long before things started to shift. Weird little moments. Strange encounters. And then the pool. God, if I had only known what was coming, I would have built a moat. The first time it happened, I thought maybe I was imagining things. I had just finished a client call when I glanced out the back window, and there she was.
Karen.
In my pool, wearing a sun hat and floating on a pink inflatable flamingo like it was the most normal thing in the world. I froze. She didn't even look my way. Just leaned back with a magazine in one hand and her phone in the other. My first instinct was to doubt myself. Had I invited her? Had we talked about this?
No.
Absolutely not. I walked out to the back porch and called out, hey? She turned slowly, like I'd interrupted something important. Oh, hi, she said, all casual, like we were longtime friends. Just needed to cool off for a sec. Your gate was open, so I figured no harm, right? I stood there blinking. I hadn't left the gate open. And even if I had, what? Who just goes into someone else's yard and starts using their pool like it's community property? I was too stunned to react properly. So I forced a smile and said, "Yeah, just please ask next time, okay?" She nodded like that was a totally reasonable compromise. Then she stayed another 20 minutes. Didn't even offer an apology. Later that night, I checked the gate.
Locked.
Not broken. Not ajar. Not even loose. That meant she unlatched it, which meant she knew exactly what she was doing. The next morning, there were 2 wet footprints on the edge of the pool I hadn't noticed before, and a hair tie floating in the shallow end. Still, I tried to let it go. One-off thing, I told myself. Maybe she was just trying to be friendly. But over the next week, I caught her again. And again. Sometimes in the morning. Other times while I was out walking the dog. Twice I came home from errands and saw her climbing back over the fence. Each time she had a different excuse. The kids were bored. "I didn't think you'd mind. It's so hot today, and our AC isn't great." I didn't want to be the uptight neighbor who makes drama. But this wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was entitlement. The kind that wears Lululemon leggings and smells like overpriced dry shampoo. After the 3rd time, I started locking the gate with a key. Thought that would stop her. It didn't. She just started climbing over. Yes, climbing. In her rhinestone flip-flops and full makeup, she scaled my fence. One day I found a cracked fence board and a patch of foundation plants trampled where she'd clearly dropped in. That's when it hit me. This wasn't going to stop. Not by asking nicely. Not by hoping it would pass. Karen didn't care about boundaries. She only cared about convenience, and my pool happened to be more convenient than her own responsibilities. The worst part? She made me feel like the intruder. Like I was overreacting for wanting privacy in my own backyard. But that feeling wasn't going to last. Because the more she pushed, the more I started thinking. If she could ignore my rules, maybe it was time I made some new ones. The kind she couldn't slither past. I wish I could say things got better. But Karen turned it into a game. Like the more I pushed back, the more determined she became to win. And, trust me, she was playing for keeps. After I locked the gate, she just upped her strategy. Next time I looked out, she wasn't alone. She had brought her kids. 3 of them. Towels sprawled across my lawn chairs, pool toys floating everywhere, and a juice box half submerged in the shallow end. I marched outside, trying not to lose it. "Karen, this is not okay." She looked up from her lounge chair without even flinching. "They were driving me crazy, and you never use the pool in the mornings." Her tone was pure smug, like I was the inconvenience. I told her again, firmly this time, that she needed to stop. She gave me that tight-lipped Karen smile and said, "You really should be more neighborly." Neighborly? I was one twitch away from jumping in and dragging her out myself. After that, I installed a cheap motion sensor camera on the side of the house, facing the backyard. It pinged my phone every time there was movement. Let me tell you, I was getting pinged a lot. She came back the next day, then the next. At one point, she was there 4 days in a row. It was like she had decided the pool was hers. And what really pushed it over the edge? She brought friends. I came home to a full-on pool party happening in my yard. Karen in her neon pink tank top, giant designer tote hanging from the fence. Kids yelling. Plastic wine glasses. Pop music blasting from a Bluetooth speaker. I pulled into the driveway and just sat there, hands gripping the wheel. My own home didn't feel like mine anymore. When I finally stepped into the yard, Karen had the nerve to wave and shout, "You're just in time." We were about to start a game of Marco Polo. I didn't even speak. I turned around and walked back inside. I was shaking. Out of anger. Out of helplessness. The next day, I drafted a strongly worded letter and stuck it in her mailbox. Formal, direct, and polite, but clear. The pool was private property. Unauthorized entry would be considered trespassing. Any further incidents would result in police involvement. She responded by telling the neighbors I was having a mental health spiral. That's not an exaggeration. I found out when someone from 3 doors down asked if I was doing okay and offered me a pamphlet for yoga classes. Karen had spun the story completely. According to her, she was just trying to keep the kids happy and build community spirit. And I was the cold, bitter loner who couldn't share a little backyard water. It was like she'd hijacked my reputation along with my pool. Even worse, she started being louder about it. I'd overhear her talking to her friends over the fence. "Oh, don't worry. She's usually gone in the afternoons. She said I could use it sometimes, but she's forgetful. She's not dangerous, just quirky." Quirky? Like I was some harmless weirdo you could ignore. She was painting me as unstable, unreliable, and just eccentric enough that people started second-guessing my version of events. I felt like I was in some kind of gaslight horror movie. And meanwhile, the intrusions continued. Her kids left soggy towels on my patio furniture. Someone broke a solar light by the garden. I even found an empty lipstick tube floating in the skimmer basket. And the final straw? She started using the pool at night. I caught it on camera. 2 in the morning. She was in a one-piece swimsuit, floating on her back under the stars like she was living out a spa fantasy. The next day, I confronted her in person. She shrugged and said, "I couldn't sleep. Water helps me relax." Like my pool was her personal therapy tub. That's when I stopped trying to reason with her. She didn't just not care, she relished ignoring boundaries. I knew now that polite conversations and written notes weren't going to cut it. If I wanted my peace back, I'd need to do something she couldn't talk her way out of. Something unforgettable. Because clearly, Karen didn't believe in consequences. And I was done playing nice. I knew I needed more than camera footage and passive-aggressive notes. Karen had mastered the art of manipulating perception. She twisted everything. Turned trespassing into charity. Turned me into the villain. But then the truth started to slip out. And when it did, it knocked the air out of me. It started with a text from Marcy, one of the moms from the PDA. "We're not super close, but we chat sometimes at school events." She wrote, "Hey, random question, do you and Karen co-own your house or something? She told us the pool was hers."
Wait, what?
I actually read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. I asked what she meant, and she replied. At the meeting yesterday, she said the pool was technically hers. That she let you use it since you're so stressed out all the time. I dropped my phone. Not in a dramatic movie way. In a real, stunned, can't feel my hands way. Karen wasn't just taking advantage. She was rewriting history. Telling people she owned my pool. That she was letting me use it out of pity? I paced around my kitchen, heart pounding in my throat. I opened the camera app and went straight to the last week of footage. There she was, again and again, climbing the fence, using the pool, throwing little waves to the camera like she knew I was watching. I dug through old neighborhood Facebook posts, curious. And there it was. A thread from a few weeks back. Love having great neighbors. Thanks to Karen for letting us cool off in her pool during that last heat wave. 4 comments. All thanking her. Photos, too. Someone had snapped a pic of Karen and a few women with wine glasses in the pool. And they tagged her. She had posted it to her own Facebook timeline. Caption? "Summer days are better when you share what's yours." What's yours? Not a mention of me. Not a tag. Nothing. I felt sick. This wasn't just about the pool. She was building a whole persona. Karen the generous hostess. Karen the community queen. Karen the poor neighbor who had to deal with the quirky girl next door. My face was probably in the background of that photo somewhere, blurred out behind the fence like an unwilling extra. And the worst part? People believed her. Because she looked the part. The trendy workout gear. The confident tone. The way she always had a reusable water bottle and a fake concerned smile. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one. The one who worked from home. The one who didn't go to every bake sale or block party. Easy to label me as the oddball. easy to believe whatever made them more comfortable. But now I had the receipts, screenshots, videos, Facebook posts. I finally had the full picture, and it was ugly. This wasn't ignorance. This was manipulation. She wanted credit without cost, power without permission. And when I thought back to every moment she brushed off my requests, every little smirk when I said, "Please stop," I realized she knew exactly what she was doing. She was counting on me staying quiet. But that was over now, because I had a plan. And the next time she came for a swim, she wasn't going to find water.
She was going to find justice.
In cherry-flavored, semi-solid form. Once I decided what I was going to do, it became an obsession. I couldn't focus on work, could barely sleep. My brain was completely occupied with one mission: Operation Jell-O. It started with research. Turns out, filling a pool with Jell-O isn't as simple as dumping packets into the water. You need the right ratio, a thickening agent, timing, temperature control. I didn't want it fully solid. It had to be just thick enough to trap someone mid-swim. So I tested batches in my garage. Different flavors, different consistencies. Used buckets. Took notes. Eventually, I landed on the perfect formula: red cherry gelatin mixed with thickener from a restaurant supply store. Enough to turn the pool into a wobbly, slow-moving trap without making it obviously suspicious at first glance. I waited for the right day. The forecast said 90 degrees.
Perfect.
Karen never missed a pool day when it was that hot. So the night before, I drained the pool about halfway, just enough to control the consistency. Then I got to work mixing in this special blend. It took hours. Buckets and buckets. By sunrise, the water had a slight pinkish tint, but still looked clear enough to pass for normal. I reset the camera angles to capture everything. Then I waited. And just after 1 p.m., right on cue, I heard the familiar click of the fence latch. She came alone this time, wearing oversized sunglasses, her usual flashy tote, and a matching hot pink tank top. Flip-flops slapping against the patio. She set her phone down, propped it up like she was ready for an Instagram shoot, and eased herself into the water. At first she smiled, sank in slow, closed her eyes and leaned back. Then she frowned, sat up, tried to move. The gelatin had started thickening around her. Every step she took forward, the pool pushed back. What the? She swatted at the water, now syrupy and sticking to her arms. Her sunglasses slid off and disappeared beneath the surface. She reached for the pool edge, but couldn't get enough momentum to lift herself out. Each movement made it worse. More resistance. More sloshing. I stepped outside, holding a tall glass of iced tea like it was just another Tuesday. She spotted me and screamed, "What did you do?" I took a sip. Pool's closed. She thrashed, splashing thick waves of cherry goop. "You psycho freak. Get me out of this slime." That's when my neighbor Jim peeked over the fence. Then Brenda from across the street. Pretty soon we had a full audience. I gestured toward the camera mounted on the corner of my roof. "Smile. You're on camera." Karen went red. Well, redder than the pool already made her. She tried pulling herself up the ladder, but it was slippery with gel. She slipped, fell back in with a splash. Gasps from the fence line. Someone chuckled. And then, she started crying. Not a single tear of remorse. Just angry, loud sobbing. "I'm calling the police." I shrugged. "Please do. I'd love to show them the footage of your nightly trespassing." Karen froze. For once, she had nothing to say. Eventually, I handed her a pool skimmer pole and said, "You can use this to wade over to the steps." She didn't thank me, just climbed out slowly, like a swamp monster reborn from gelatinous rage. Slipped once more, got cherry gunk on her tote bag, stormed out the gate dripping and furious. She never looked back, didn't say a word, didn't return for her phone, either. I had to hand it to her later in a sealed Ziploc bag. The best part? My camera footage made the rounds. Jim posted it in the neighborhood group chat with a caption, "When you trespass in the wrong backyard." Everyone saw it. Everyone knew. And just like that, the Karen myth crumbled. After the Great Gelatin Showdown, everything got real quiet. Karen stopped coming around. No more surprise dips. No more late-night splashes. No more pretending we were part of some shared suburban resort. For a few days, she kept to herself. Then the gossip started. Apparently, Karen tried to spin the story. Claimed she slipped and fell into some chemical disaster caused by my pool maintenance. But the video said otherwise. Every smirk, every fence climb, every time she waved at the camera like she owned the place. That footage lived in inboxes, text threads, and even on someone's TikTok. One of the teenagers in the neighborhood dubbed it with dramatic music and the title, Karen vs. the Kool-Aid Pool. It got thousands of views. I never had to confront her again. She just disappeared. Not literally. She still lived there. But she didn't look me in the eye. Didn't talk to the neighbors the same way. That performative charm?
Gone.
The next time we crossed paths, months later, she was pulling weeds in silence, no sunglasses, no entourage. She never apologized. But honestly, I didn't need her to. I got my peace back. That pool? It stayed off limits for the rest of the summer. Just me, my dog, and a new lock on the gate that I installed myself. Sometimes I'd float there alone, sipping iced tea, watching the sun hit the water just right, and I'd smile. Because for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a guest in my own yard. I felt like the owner again. Lesson learned? You can try kindness. You can try patience. But when someone keeps crossing the line on purpose, sometimes the only thing that works is a cold splash of consequences. Or, in this case, cherry-flavored ones.